back. You're watching Startup Central with me, Nayantara Rai, working from home. This is the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated, of course, to startups, innovation, technology, disruption, entrepreneurship. Now, what we've seen during the pandemic is the biggest sporting extravaganza, the IPL, moved to UAE, but all the sponsors, or let me put it this way, the majority of the sponsors are from the startup universe. They have replaced the traditional sponsors for cricket. It's a trend that actually started during the 2019 Cricket World Cup. Remember all those ads of Farm Easy, for example? But clearly by IPL, that trend has firmed up. You've seen double downing of Byju's, Paytm. Dream 11 has become the title sponsor, replacing Vivo. Unacademy made a pitch. You're also seeing the likes of Cred, for example, come out for a new innings. Has it paid off? I know it's early days yet, but has it paid off? Has there been an initial surge in whether it's brand recall or traffic? What has the IPL meant for the startup street and even for consumption altogether? I'm going to be discussing that and more with V Sudarshan, the CMO and Senior Vice President at Hansa Research. Hansa Research, incidentally, also consults with IPL teams like Mumbai Indians. Sudarshan, thanks so much for joining us here on Startup Central. I know it's early days, very early days, but every day you have almost a close match. You never know what's going to happen. New heroes are being discovered as well. What's the initial data showing? All that sponsorship, particularly by young entrepreneurs, startups, paying dividends as yet?
Yeah. To start off with, actually, even the IPL has been showing, great numbers. If you look at just the IPL viewership numbers for the first match that happened on the 19th of September, the total TVR was roughly about 158 million, which is close to about 21% more than what last year it was. Add to it, what is also happening is that a lot of stickiness is there on IPL this year. We've seen that those people who have got into the IPL, they're watching it for a higher, for a longer time. Um, Unlike last year's, when we had seen traditional advertisers like e-com or mobile handsets or automobile and durables, especially air conditioners, who used to advertise a lot. This year, we had a lot of new clients coming up, new advertisers coming up, the startups, as you rightly said, the new guys who were there, who had come up, Dream 11 taking up the sponsorship. There was Byju's who was taking up, there was Vedantu, there was Sun Academy, there's names like White Hat Junior, which was like very new. And also what we saw was FMCG and consumer product, which were like never looking at IPL at all, because that's not the genre that FMCG would be looking at. But even they had started advertising. If you look at sponsorship, right, and if you look at what was the recall of major brands, let's look at the main sponsor, or basically what we call the title sponsor, Dream 11. Um, if you go to 100 people, if we went to 100 people way back in 2008 to 2012, when DLF was the sponsor of the IPL, we saw that roughly about 45 to 50% people used to call it the DLF IPL. It changed when it came to Pepsi. When Pepsi took on the IPL, that went up to 55%. The first year itself, we looked at, Pepsi's recall being around 55% as the title sponsors of IPL. Vivo took it up in 2016, and they were there for the last 3 years. The first year of Vivo advertising as the title sponsor of IPL was roughly about 70%, 71% was their recall. So out of 100 people, 70 people used to call it the Vivo IPL. People used to call Pepsi IPL, they used to call only IPL and things like that. The best thing that has happened, and thanks to Star Sports, thanks to BCCI, IPL, the type of advertising they're doing, the type of releases that they're doing on newspaper and across channels, Dream 11, the first year, I mean, when I say first year, they as title sponsors for the first year. The first year recall itself is roughly about 90%. So it's like, they've done a great job. I mean, at least Dream 11 with Dhoni as the, mentor, as the, brand ambassador, they've done a great job, as a title sponsor. And we can only say that by the end of the IPL and the start of next year, we'll find that almost everybody will be calling it a Dream 11 IPL, and people will slowly try and forget that Vivo was ever, a main sponsor of IPL at all. Just like how people now don't realize that DLF was one or a Pepsi was one. So yeah, so that's as far as the main sponsors are concerned. If you look at the top five spenders or the top 10 spenders on IPL and the top five recalled brands on IPL, we see
So
new
Sudarshan,
names.
I'm going to come in there and then just enter. You've just said, Sudarshan, allow me to interject, please. So you've
Yeah,
just
yeah.
said that if you look back in time, the recall now of Pepsi ever being associated with it or DLF in the first couple of editions is not there. So basically,
No,
it's also very clear that when startups are choosing to invest in IPL now, it's for now. It's not necessarily, to have recall a couple of years later. It's for now. It's for the current story.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, Dream 11, this is not the first year for Dream 11. Dream 11 has been advertising on IPL for a very long time, but they've taken up the title sponsorship this year, and the title sponsorship is big. We're looking at 222 crores that they've spent on title sponsorship. Versus a Vivo, who got their first year recall was roughly about 70%. This year, if you look at Dream 11, there's close to about 90% people who recall them as the title sponsor, which is really, really big, which is really huge. So, yeah, I mean, the startups are putting in the money and they are getting their, what do you call, the type of response that they're looking at. What we also have is something what we call the passive monitoring, which is basically what we try to understand how many people have a Dream 11, how many people downloaded Dream 11 after IPL started, etc. What we've seen is that Dream 11 has increased their downloads by close to about 20-25% in the last 1 week, which is really big, which is really, really high. I mean, by the end of IPL, I don't know. I mean, there'll be different numbers altogether, completely different numbers for Dream 11. So in the case with other people, other fantasy leagues too, My 11 Circle and others, who've been advertising and they've seen great numbers. I mean, it's not just the recalls. Even the go-to action is actually helping majority of these people, majority of these advertisers. Apart from that, what we've also seen is clients like GameZ.com and clients like MPL, clients like Byju's, who've been advertising as getting much better recalls than what Airtel or a Vodafone used to get earlier when they used to advertise on IPL, in the beginning. Amazon is one client who's been there consistently for a very, very long time on IPL. We've seen that every year they are either associate or the main sponsors of IPL, and they have done pretty well. In fact, this year they've done much better than what they had done last year. Especially Prime Video, they have done brilliant. The numbers are staking up high, but again, as you rightly said, these are very, very early now, early days. These are just about 3-4 days of data that we're looking at. We should be waiting for at least another one week at least to look at what is the type of ROI that they're getting, what is the return on investment that each of these guys is, uh, getting from the IPL, which should be
Right.
there by mid of, say, first week of October.
So I tell you what, Sudarshan, you've got to be back right here on Startup Central in the first week of October to tell us about that. And also at that time, it would be great to discuss that data. And let's also talk about it that day, the merits of sponsoring the IPL versus the jerseys, right? Which one has a better brand recall? I'm telling you now, or we're going to be discussing next time. But it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much, Nanda.
We're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned. On the other side, we're going to be putting the spotlight on a health tech startup which helps out all of you figure out ECG, there's a wearable device. How reliable is it? Well, it certainly has the Union Health Ministry very impressed. Stay tuned.